Welcome, Sainers. Welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. It's Trade Talk. We've got some news. We're going to talk about it. Obviously, it is September 9th. Still a long way from the actual trade period, but as we know, every single day there is news regarding our football club. And today we're going to talk about Rowan Marshall. We're going to talk about Callum Wilkie, and obviously we're going to be talking about Marcus Windhager. So straight off the bat, let's look at Rowan Marshall and exactly what's been going on. Supposedly, Geelong have upped the ante on their interest in our contracted ruckman, and that is the key thing, that he is contracted until the end of 2027. Geelong, we know, have never really had a star ruck. They've been fine without one, to be honest, but have now been linked with Rowan Marshall, mainly off the back of us signing Tom De Koning and whether he wants to be second ruck and obviously work with Tom De Koning in that capacity. We've since heard that in the last 24 hours, the AFL is looking at adjusting ruck rules. Obviously, the bench is going to be changed 5 now, which means that more clubs will probably be looking at this dual ruck setup, and I think that benefits Rowe. I think having another ruck there to take the workload off him is going to continue his career. I think increase his longevity in the AFL. And obviously there's a bit of flexibility in how we play him if he does, want to stay at St Kilda. But like I said, he is contracted. So Geelong, they've got to do all the work here. Absolutely, they've got to do all the work here. I think we've heavily front-ended his deal. So his next 2 years at St Kilda are on a reduced amount. So he's got the bulk of it in the last 2 years, I believe. But in terms of what Geelong can do, their first round of this year is not going to be great. They're in a prelim. It's going to fall back. It's not going to be really of any interest. I'd imagine we would be looking at futures if it went down to it, but or potentially players as well. If we're really wanting to climb up the ladder now, we probably won't just want picks. But it's all on Geelong. And right now they don't really have anything that will suffice. We're not gonna let him go unless we win this deal. And Ross said that weeks ago. They're contracted. Geelong, can obviously offer him a lifestyle that will suit him. Maybe a farm or two down the peninsula or something. I don't know, but it's a one to watch. But I would not be surprised if it just doesn't get done and St Kilda retain him going into next season. We have all the power here, unlike Naz, unlike Windy. We have all the power here, and there's a lot of work to be done there on the Geelong perspective. But the good thing is the players being linked out of St Kilda are contracted. So, like I said, if anything comes down to it, we will want to win in that trade. But obviously my preference is to retain Rowan Marshall and not lose him. So right now, nothing really changes. He's contracted. He hasn't come out and said that he wants to leave. He's actually said quite the opposite in recent interviews, and has been excited about the idea of playing with another ruckman. And yeah, Geelong can go for him. They can chat to him. That's what players do. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean anything until there's a request that gets put in, which hasn't been done, obviously. So that is the latest on Rowan Marshall. Not really much movement apart from articles coming out saying that Geelong have upped the ante and they're going to try and squeeze him out with the likes of Tom De Koning coming in. But that's all old news. We kind of knew that would be a possibility. The other one is obviously Callum Wilkie. There's a little bit more to this one than the Rowan Marshall one. I listened to Josh Gablich on the Trade Bell this morning with Jared Waitley, and it was a really good listen. Highly recommend it. So just in summary, again, like Rowan Marshall, Callum Wilkie is contracted until the end of 2027. He's our vice captain, rumoured to be our captain moving forward. The Dogs' offer was 1.1 over 4 years, so obviously over $4 million for 4 years. That would be significantly more than what his next 2 years at St Kilda would be, but there's a chance there that we'd be renegotiating his contract off the back of this news. It would not surprise me if it's his agent going to the Dogs and seeing what the market is for someone like Callum Wilkie right now. And And I said it in a recent interview. If we come out and re-sign him for 2 years and he becomes captain, you'd imagine, the dollar amount would be closer to the money. I couldn't imagine it'd be, maybe it would be over $1 million. I'm not too sure. But the interesting thing that Josh mentioned on the trade bell was that they would be prepared. The Dogs would be prepared to up the ante on the 1.1. I saw 1.5 floated, but upwards of 1.1 and more. It's interesting again because they missed out on Silvani. They weren't willing to get him on any sort of amount, and now they're throwing the farm at Callum Wilkie. And the interesting thing is, again, he is contracted. So unless he wants out, unless we get something huge in return, it's just all just media frenzy talking about players at St Kilda. But again, Callum Wilkie's been interviewed at least 3 times since the original news of, the disharmony of Lecalier and Silvani coming in on similar money to him, which again is unproven. But he's come out every single time and said he's excited for it. We need to get better. I want to be part of the future. I'm not going anywhere. His phone call to Ross Lyon, all those indicate to me that this is just a bit of posturing, and eventually he'll probably get an improved deal at St Kilda. And until the Dogs come out and actually float players that they would be willing to trade with, and they would be good players, we'd be looking at some top line. Like if they want our second best player, really, who is Callum Wilkie behind Naz right now in terms of importance, we'd be looking at their second or third best player in return. And, that's an Ed Richards or something, but it's not. I just can't see that happening, to be honest. And why would we want to strengthen a team that's maybe 1 or 2 like star defenders like Callum Wilkie away from being a top 4 premiership threat? That was their weakness, the Bulldogs' defence. Why would we want to improve a team that we want to be better than next season and the years beyond? To me, it all points to it's a bit of fluff, and he will stay at St Kilda. And all signs are pointing to that at the moment in time. Anyway, so that is Callum Wilkie. And then obviously the last one, and probably the one that we're all a little bit most nervous about because he is uncontracted. So it's a little bit easier for Marcus to kind of negotiate and exit, compared to Marshall and Wilkie, who are contracted. But at this point in time, North and D's obviously strongly linked. The big one was Melbourne and their offer. I know North offered 5 years. We've offered 4 now, or at least in recent weeks we'd upped it to 4. It was originally 2, which a lot of people and maybe Windy thought that's a bit of a slap in the face. I'm part of the future. I want to be here long term. 2 years when other blokes are getting more than that. Maybe I deserve more. So you can understand maybe the delay on his end and looking at what he's worth at other clubs. Melbourne was the big one. Earlier in the week, Mark Fine talked about it on the radio and said that he'd be very surprised if Marcus Windhager would be at St Kilda next season unless St Kilda move heaven and earth to keep him. And I think that's what's happening right now. So as of last night, there was news that St Kilda are looking to revise the 4-year deal on the table for Marcus Windhager. Now, I don't know whether that means we're going to go from 4 years to 5 years on the same money, but we're going to increase the length, and he gets 5 years of job security minimum locked in at a club that he wants to be at, or we up the dollar tree amount for him for 4 years. Now, a lot of people, including Cal Toomey, mentioned previously that if we offered the 4 years, he would just sign it. Tom Morris mentioned it as well, that if we offered 4 years, he would just sign it on the dot and he would stay. We offered 4 years, but he hasn't signed on the dotted line. Not that we know yet. However, Ollie Gill. A lot of people are referencing Ollie Gill now. So credit to you, Ollie. On the recent Dan Does Footy podcast with Dan Gorringe, obviously, he mentioned that he texted Marcus Windhager and he showed his phone to Dan Gorringe. He read it and he's like, yeah, okay, so all the Melbourne talk is bullshit, essentially. So maybe, if we want to lean on anything, Ollie Gill might be pretty confident that Windy is staying. And coincidentally, when the news broke of Windy, us upping the offer for Windy, that was when Windy started posting golf photos, like literally to the minute. 5 minutes after that news broke and I posted it, he posted his first Insta story, and it was him just playing golf with a couple of mates. Looking like a guy that maybe just sorted out his future and is pretty relaxed. I don't know, but maybe there's a little bit more to work there. It could come down to Where does Windy see his future? Where do we see him? Is he our second best mid behind Naz? Does the club foresee Boxall, Garcia, and Filippo coming in, competing for, I guess, centre bounce minutes with Windy? And maybe that's why our offer hasn't really budged and increased to the level of maybe a Melbourne. I'm not too sure. But it's good to see that we are on the front foot here and we're looking to revise it. That to me says that we're pretty close, and maybe, again, very similar to, I guess, the Cal Wilkie situation with maybe a bit of posturing. Maybe Windy's agent went and used North Melbourne and Melbourne as a bit of leverage, found out what the offers could be on the table there, and has, since gone back to St Kilda and said, look, this is exactly what other clubs would be willing to pay. He wants to stay. Let's get closer to this mark. Maybe not exactly, but I think in the realm, maybe gets the job done. So a bit more to do there, but I think that's a positive sign in the Windhager situation. So that is the news at the moment. Obviously, there has been more with Lecker Lear nominating us, but I just wanted to go through current St Kilda players and exactly what's going on there. Nothing really talked about with Jack Steele. I think there was a bit of a murmur about Dan Butler to West Coast, maybe as part of the Liam Ryan trade. I'm not too sure on that one as well, but take that with a grain of salt. But the main ones is obviously Rowan Marshall, contracted. We would need to be satisfied with a deal if he was to go to Geelong, so I don't think that's going to happen. Cal Wilkie, contracted. Our vice captain, our second best player, is going to be top 5 in the BNF again. Could have been All-Australian again. There is no way I can see us letting him go and strengthening a Western Bulldogs team that won 14 games and missed finals marginally. I just can't see us even looking at that. And then Marcus Windhager, Melbourne in the box seat as of a few days ago, and it looks like we've upped the ante in that situation and looking to revise the deal. So that is the news. That is the trade talk at the moment. Saying is, if anything else breaks, I will be right here talking to you about it. Hopefully you appreciate these videos on a frequent basis. Obviously more videos will be coming across the channel in the coming weeks. But yeah, hopefully have a great day. Have a great rest of your week and take care, and I'll see you in the next video. As always, go you mighty Saners. See you guys.